please just stop. Really, just stop already. Some of what I am going to talk about today, you will vehemently disagree with. And some of you may be yelling at your screens in total agreement. But from my perspective, with people who watch and comment on this channel, dozens of clients and students and musicians and prospective clients, well-meaning emailers, there are just some things that I have to recommend that you stop doing for your own success. And perhaps at the risk of hyperbole, you're like, Eric, have hyperbole? For the good of all mankind, these are just things I'm down on right now. And I want to tell you why in this podcast. Now, these are things I don't think I'm going to change my mind on. However, you never know. After all, my record with Content ID, just for example, or Taxi for that matter, is not good. And sorry, there is another Content ID video coming on that. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see that. But unless they change their ways, which since I've been working with most of these things for years, and some of these things I'm going to talk about today for decades, literally going back to the 90s, I don't think I will change my mind, even amidst all my change I have going on. And here are a few of the culprits I'm going to talk about in today's podcast. AI music making, and a lot of things inside of that. SoundCloud. Yes, it's time to talk about SoundCloud for real. Google Drive. Sorry, but we got to talk about it. CDBaby. Yes, I know I've talked about them recently, but we just need to be talking about them. And I'm also going to talk about some stock libraries. You shouldn't even waste your time, or if you do, I'm going to give you some warnings about them. And then I have a list of some others that we'll talk about. But it is Purge Day on the podcast today. No, not that Purge, not that awful movie. It's Purge Day, and these are things that I just think that you need to stop doing, and you kind of need to stop doing them now. Welcome to the Make Music Income Podcast. My name is Eric Copeland, and I've made a full-time living as a music producer, composer, and arranger for over 25 years. In this podcast, I talk about making music income with music licensing, music production, music streaming, music royalties, being a music composer, arranger, producer, or artist, or really any way that I have in the past or currently now or want to make music income. I have free and paid courses and coaching and ebooks for you at makemusicincome.com/free. Make sure to like this podcast if you enjoy the content, because it really helps, and subscribe if you're just finding the podcast or channel and want to be part of things every week. I hope all this content helps you make the music you love to make and make music income. Hey, thanks for joining me today here on the podcast. One quick announcement. We have several openings left for our 2-day tracking session in Nashville. Now, I may not have talked about this yet on this channel, but we will be tracking in Nashville on May 1st and 2nd. We are going to be tracking mostly country on that day, and also independent indie country and contemporary, very contemporary country. And this will include drums, it'll include bass and upright. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at the studio. This is Watershed Studio that we'll be working at. And it's a lovely place right inside Nashville. I've worked there many times. And there's a bonus coming, so stay tuned. But you can see the main room here, and we will have drums and guitars. We'll have bass. You can see the piano room here, which has a beautiful grand Yamaha piano and a B3 with Leslie, and lots of different booths and things like that. So we will have upright bass that day. We will have basically all kinds of acoustic instruments. We have a kind of a multi-instrumentalist playing acoustic guitar, banjo, mandolin, fiddle, dobro, And then we'll have electric guitar, and the studio cost, or the entire price cost, also includes a Grammy-winning engineer who will be tracking, an assistant engineer, and the studio itself. It's an all-in-one price to track one of your songs. If you're watching or listening before May 1st, by the end of April, I can probably get you into one of these sessions, and we can also meet. I'm going to be there, ladies and gentlemen. This is not going to be a remote session for me. So if you are interested in meeting me and maybe even going to lunch, it's kind of what a deal. It's kind of a free in-person producing, coaching, get a song track that you can push out to. I have briefs right now that I am pitching to, and that's really the start and was the impetus for this whole tracking session was these briefs that I have. These are all going to libraries in some album or another. So if you want to be part of that, I will be there. We can meet. We can work together in the studio. You can hang out in the studio, go to lunch with us if you want to. So email me at the email address you see down below. This will only be on this video until the day of the tracking session. Probably I'll take this off, but it'll be on the podcast forever. So sorry, podcasters. If you're listening after May 2nd, it's too late. But I thought I would mention it because a lot of people have mentioned wanting to be part of these sessions. And they've also mentioned wanting to meet me, which you would. You get to meet me, and I will be there producing. See me in my element. I'm not sure I'm going to be doing any live streaming. I'm going to be too focused on trying to get a lot of songs done. But that's going to be happening. So if you're interested, then absolutely get in touch with me at makemusicincome@gmail.com. Let's talk about the things that I am really just kind of fed up with. I've just had it up to here, which, by the way, is about 6'2". I did decide to measure myself because I said on my podcast a week or two ago, I think it was last week, I guess, that I was 6'4", and people couldn't believe I was 6'4". Well, I'm not 6'4". I measured myself after not measuring myself. I am over 6'3", but I'm not exactly up to 6'4". So there's that. But I've had it up to 6'2" with all of this stuff. And I want to just start talking about this. And if you have any agreements, disagreements, whatever, and you are watching right now, put it in the chat. If you're watching later, then I want you to put it in the comments, and I will get back to every comment. And that's one of the best things about this podcast is that we can be interactive here. So let's start with the very first one, which I don't think is very amazing that I would talk about. Like you're not going to be shocked that the first thing I want you to do is to stop making music with AI. I want you to stop using Suno or Udio. If you're watching this podcast right now, or if you're listening to this podcast, and you're going into Suno and Udio and entering, make me a pop song that says this and that, you're not making any music. You are just telling a computer to make music for you. And you just need to stop. In fact, you may just need to go now. Just the doors are over there. Just go. Go to Suno and make some music. I get it. I understand if you have limited skills or no skills. I know people who don't have any music skills yet. They are poets, and they use Suno. I can see that, actually, even though they could just contact me, and I would make the music for them. But no, they're using these sites. If you're using these sites and you're watching right now, then maybe you just need to run along and go to Suno or Udio and tell a computer to make a song for you. I am talking here on this channel about making music and making music income. That's been the premise of this channel for the whole time. Don't come at me with music that you had generated and want to sell it. Don't even start. Nobody wants that. No library, nobody really on Spotify wants that. They want to come and listen to an artist who's making music. It's heresy to those of us who want to make music and feel that we really have a desire to make music. I don't have a problem with AI, and I love some things about AI. I use stem splitting more than I ever thought I would. and mostly for references, and then I'll take it all out. You got to be careful with that, even though, too. I told a story about using a reference too much and then being told by a library, we don't want that because it sounds too much like another song. So you got to be careful with that. But stem splitting is useful for getting tempo, maybe having something to play with. I used a Sting song on my single, and we all played to Sting singing the song. So it's pretty cool to use for some things. There's voice overlay things like Automy or kits.ai. I use those all the time, especially for scratch vocals. But there are some libraries who don't mind them as lead vocals, believe it or not. And because it's me singing, and then I overlay a voice, a girl's voice or a guy's voice over the top of it, and it sounds like somebody else, but it's actually me singing. So there's a gray area there. Also AI, using ChatGPT for song names or ideas or different things. I use that all the time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about entering something into AI and it making you a song, and that song being what you put out to libraries or to Spotify. Just stop doing that. Don't do that. That's the first thing I want you to stop. And this also has some subcategories. I know a lot of people are going to really freak out about this one, but I think this Scalar program, Scalar 3, which everybody's going crazy about, where it tells you what the chords are and it picks chords for you, that's just another version of AI music making. I think it's a cheat, unless you are really using it to teach yourself chords. But if you're just using it to make music and generate chord, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Same as Logic session players or Easy Keys or Easy Bass or whatever. I have Easy Drummer, but I have never once used an Easy Drummer loop because I just like the sounds in Easy Drummer. But if all you are doing is generating basses and keyboards and all that kind of stuff with this, then that's no. You got to stop that. You need to make music, and if you don't know how to make music, you need to learn how to make music. I'm old school. You gotta make the music, I think. Any other AI music generator, including, these aren't necessarily AI, but including Splice and including Arcade. Pulling over a loop that you didn't make and making that the central part of your song is not what libraries want if you're into sync or any kind of thing like that. It can get you in trouble on Content ID, and maybe even with Spotify. I just think you've got to make your own things. And you've got to make your own music and stop letting AI and programs make music for you. You just got to stop. All right, let's move on to the next thing I want to talk about today. And that is, I want to tell you to stop using SoundCloud. Now, this is going to be one of those things you're like, what? Why would I stop using SoundCloud? Well, let me tell you why you should stop using SoundCloud. One word: ads. Ladies and gentlemen, I get so many people who send me a SoundCloud link to hear their music. I have just a few minutes to listen to their music and give them some feedback, and or we're getting ready to have a talk. We're going to do a coaching session on Zoom, and they want to show me their music and they're playing me a song or two, and then suddenly a SeaWorld ad comes on or some advertisement comes on with music behind it. I'm thinking that's their music. I'm wondering what is going on. And guess what? I can't get out of that ad. I have to wait and wait. I can't even really restart SoundCloud. It's a major, major problem. And are you going to send a SoundCloud link to a sync library? Seriously? You want to be like just blackballed from that library? Send them a SoundCloud link and let them listen to a SeaWorld ad and see what they do to you and see if they get back to you. Because they won't have time for that. They're busier than I am. Well, I don't know if that's true, but they are busy and they do not have the time to sit there and listen to ads. Not only that, but if you take somebody to SoundCloud, it might take them into a SoundCloud, the whole SoundCloud culture, which is fine. And if you want to be part of that culture and you're doing demos and all that kind of stuff so you can show other people on SoundCloud and build a community, that's different. That's a different thing than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using SoundCloud as a way to send something to me or to a library or to someone who is important to you for them to hear your music. Don't use SoundCloud. I just think there are better ways. Here is a way you can use SoundCloud, and I think you will avoid ads if you do it this way and use an embedded player in your website, a SoundCloud embedded player. I've been doing that for years with one of my sites. I use Disco now, but I have used that before. And yeah, that seems to work without ads, I believe. But if you send people to a SoundCloud link on SoundCloud, you're just risking them being mad at you. That's just something I want to just say, why don't you stop doing that? Because I think that's important to stop. Along those same lines, let's talk about stopping using Google Drive. I know you all have Google. I have Gmails out the wazoo, but I do not use Google Drive to put music on and send to people. I get so many, and have for 10 or more years, got Google Drive links that I can't open because they're sending it to me on one email. And it's all tied to the Gmail that they are sending it to. If you're not logged into that Gmail, you can't access it. And then you have to figure out, if you're someone like me who has multiple Gmails, you're trying to figure out which one to log into and all this stuff. It is a major pain in my behind. So stop using Google Drive unless you know and are absolutely sure on how to send links correctly. You need to stop. And there is a way to send links correctly. And I'm going to explain it to you right now. To send a Google Drive link, navigate to the file folder, click Share. Always share links. Never email that, tell them to have to go somewhere. Share a link, select anyone with the link, and choose the access level, viewer, commenter, probably just viewer. Copy that link and share it with the desired recipient. This is the same way I use Dropbox. I never share Dropboxes with people, but I do share a link directly to the file I want them to listen to. And this is what you should be doing. Share a link only directly to that file. So when they click on that link, just a link opens up and they can hit play. So if you can remember how to do that, then that is something that you really need to know how to do with Google Drive. And again, just like with SoundCloud, it's one of those things that if you don't send things correctly for people to listen to, they are not going to listen. And they are not going to get your files. And they are not going to be happy people. And it's not much different. The same thing really goes. I mean, I think Dropbox is great. And I have a link for Dropbox down below because Dropbox is where I live my life every day. But I think Dropbox is the best of them. And yes, it does cost. Some of these things like Dropbox and Disco, they both have costs to them. But if you are serious, you have to be investing a little bit in your career. And I look at Dropbox and Disco as just things that are necessary business tools for me. I don't even think about them. They are necessary music business tools, and I have to use them. And so SoundCloud is not one of those. There's other ones like WeTransfer that are similar to Google Drive. The problem with WeTransfer is if you use it and you don't access it within, they've changed it to the point where if you wait just an extra 2 days, you'll have to ask the client, or worst case, a library. I didn't download it in time. Can you send me the link again? So WeTransfer gets on my nerves. Box is just another version of Dropbox, and it's just a little too confusing that there's Dropbox and there's Box. And so I still think Dropbox is kind of the industry standard right now. I know Google Drive is the industry standard for poor people, for people who already have, no offense if you're poor. I'm right there with you. But I just think you stop using the Google Drive. Jim says, is there an ad-free version of SoundCloud? I don't think so. I think there's an ad-free version if you are a SoundCloud user and you're on SoundCloud doing things. There's not an ad-free version for the people you want to send music to, and that's the real problem with SoundCloud. Gregory Webb says, couldn't agree more about using AI to generate quote-unquote music, and definitely don't use SoundCloud for sharing to professionals. Good. But I do use it for sharing to buddies and people within the community. Yeah, again, inside the SoundCloud community is a different thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about being a SoundClouder, and if that's such a thing. Michael says, use Real Crafter. Yeah, I would agree. Instead of SoundCloud, I would definitely, after Disco, I would say Real Crafter would be the next thing. It's perfectly acceptable inside the same community. Gerald says, I take proper stems from AI and mix them down and add drums on top, upscale percussion loops. It's a rabbit hole that I enjoy. Yeah, that's fine, Gerald. It's just that I worry that what you're going to find out when you put this out into the world, if you're registering stuff to Content ID, or if you put it onto YouTube, what kind of Content ID claims you're going to get because of the Suno stuff. That is definitely going to be a problem. If you try to send this to sync libraries, they're going to ask you, and every place pretty much asks you now, are you using AI in this? All of the distributors, all of that, they want to know. And if you lie to them, or if you tell them the truth, who knows if they're going to be happy. The reality is no one can tell. Okay. Especially if your quality control is top notch, like me, I'm a pro in mix and mastering producer, and no one will ever know I've used AI. Maybe the listener won't know, but the robots will know. And the robots are listening. They're listening on Spotify. They're listening on Content ID. They're listening on YouTube. And I think it's going to get to the place where if you're not making original music and putting it out, the listeners who are always listening, maybe they can't tell. Maybe the listeners are, yeah, I agree. Listeners are not that smart, like just regular listeners. They don't care. They're people who aren't like us. All they are doing is tapping their foot when they hear the music and or clapping along or singing along. They don't care about how the music's made. But we all care about how the music's made. Musicians, publishers, libraries, record labels, they care a lot. So I think you just got to be careful. And it sounds like you're trying to find ways to use it creatively, so that's cool. Shane says, I use SoundCloud as a repository for my music so I can listen to it in various settings while I'm still working on the mix and composition. I'm able to organize my tracks into relevant playlists. Yeah, I'm not talking about using it for yourself or even the SoundCloud community for what it is. I've been using it for 20 years. When you start using it as a thing to send to me to listen to your music or send to a library to listen to your music, I think that's where the problem comes in. I notice more companies using WeTransfer. Musicians have been sending me files with WeTransfer for years. I'm not saying it's terrible, but it can be kind of like it's a link that goes away if you don't get to it. And for those of us who are busy and have an email list that is always just growing and we're trying to get through our email, having a limit on when we can get the music is troubling. Angela says, does Disco have reasonable pricing? I think they have a $9.99 level. Elaine says, yes, they have artist pricing for Disco. Thank you for that. Disco with Artist Discover is $22 a month. Yeah, that's getting into it in a different kind of way, and that's what I pay because I am using it hopefully for libraries to search and find out, and I use it as my complete catalog now, so I can have a catalog link to send, and that's gotten me library deals before. Elaine J here. I'm here because I watched your video about issues with your release on CDBaby. I had a nightmare in addition to them no longer setting up artist's YouTube channel. I waited 6 months for a release. All right, well, let's get to the next thing I want to talk about. And since Elaine was just talking about CDBaby, that's my next topic here. Be wary of CDBaby. I've never said this before. I mean, before recently, in the past 6 months, since I did something with CDBaby last year where I tried to do a classical album, and about the only way you can release freaking classical music to Apple and Apple Classical is to release it through CDBaby that I can find, or maybe Symphonic as well. But there are issues at CDBaby. There's issues with their support staff for sure. There's issues with their speed. I waited for weeks to release my latest single there. Weeks. And to even be told it was going to be sent out. Waiting for them to process it. Because they have another thing now that you can pay $19.99 extra and get to the front of the line. No, not going to do that. We're not going to go there. You can't say you can release a single for $9.99 and then tell me, oh, but that may take a while, and if you really want to get to the front of the line, you can pay an extra $19.99. Come on, that's kind of a little much for me with CDBaby. And you're talking and listening to someone who has been using CDBaby literally since the 1990s. I put out music at the end of the 90s on CDBaby when it was still owned by Derek Sivers and still a very kind of new service that you could put your own independent music and you could sell your CDs on this site. I was on there. I have been a champion of them for 25 years. I have put every one of my clients just about on there at one time or another, especially the ones who aren't going to be releasing every 6 weeks. I think CDBaby still has a unique place. I don't know, and tell me in the comments if you know this or in the chat, if there's another thing that you can pay per release like CDBaby, where you pay them one fee, like $9.99, and release one song, and it's on there forever and you never have to pay them again. And maybe they take a little bit of something on the side like CDBaby does. If you know of any place like that, let me know. That service needs to exist because not everybody needs to pay $50 a year because they're not going to release that much music, and they don't want their music to be taken down if they quit paying that $50. But recently, I just feel like CDBaby is falling behind the DistroKids, the Landers, the Symphonics of the world. I just took a song out of CDBaby, an album, a full album, because for some reason, I've got some weirdness at Apple Music where I have two of the same artist, and some of the albums are on one and some on the other. So what I'm going to be doing is taking each one down, which I did. This was a very fast process, actually. Wait till you hear how fast this was. I took this album down from CDBaby for my jazz group on Monday. Today's Wednesday. On Monday morning, took it down. It was down out of Apple Music by the next day. So I'll give CDBaby credit for fast takedowns. I put it back up on DistroKid yesterday morning. By the time I got to the gym in the afternoon, it was on Apple Music. I mean, within an hour or two, it was on Apple Music and in the correct place on Apple Music. So I'm either going to try to contact Apple Music and see if they can combine both accounts. I don't know if they will. Getting hold of Apple or Spotify is challenging, obviously. But I will probably do that for all my albums on CDBaby. I'm probably just going to start to be done putting stuff on CDBaby. It's unfortunate, and if I felt like their speed was good. Now, both the times that I've had trouble with CDBaby with their speed have been on either cover songs or public domain classical songs that I had to spell a certain way. But it was long, and maybe if I have a client coming up here recently, I can give a better report if it's an original song and see how fast it can get up there. But boy, it's taken a long time right now. Support is only a bot. There is no way to reach a human that I've found. And that is not like CDBaby. They have always been great support. So that's where we are with CDBaby right now. Well, I think I just described this, how you can transfer your catalog to another distributor. You just do a takedown of all your catalog and take each one down. They'll go down very fast, faster than you think, especially out of Spotify and Apple Music. They'll be down. And then you put them back up in the distributor, and DistroKid is like ultra fast. And Elaine says, yes, I ended up paying $25 extra in order to get my song out on the right schedule without messing up my 6-week release. That's what I was doing. That's where I was with it. I was trying to release that single on a certain day, and I couldn't get it out because they wanted me to pay an extra fee to put the song out. Come on. That's just... Do you want to talk about DistroKid's extra fees? That extra fee thing that CDBaby has. To quote someone from earlier in the podcast, that is whack. Travis says, I put out 3 singles through CDBaby last year. No problems that I recall. Sure didn't take 6 weeks. Started using them in 2007. Again, they were probably originals, I take it. I am going to try to do a CDBaby release and not put a date on it and see how fast it gets out. But I'm a little burned by them right now. And with DistroKid putting it up same day, I don't have time. I don't even have time to experiment. Mark Russian says, Catapult distribution is like CDBaby, a little high price. I've been using them on and off for over 15 years. Okay. So that's an option to CDBaby. Trev says, well, same day turnaround sure sounds better in any case. No doubt. This is not the first time this has happened. Just last week, I put another artist, I needed to get them up on DistroKid fast. Boom, day of. Both to Apple, and not to Spotify. It took the next day to get to Spotify, but day of Apple Music, like morning to afternoon, Apple Music, Amazon. Okay, so Elaine J says, my issue with CDBaby was with an original song. So I think it's kind of hit or miss with CDBaby right now. Gregory Webb says, I'm curious of AudioSparx too. I was just emailing back and forth with them. I'm cautious about their perpetual song use, so I haven't started uploading yet. And my friend, that is where we are going next. We're going to talk about some stock sites that you should just stop. Just stop. Just let it go. And there are people that are online right now saying we should just let go of stock music in general. I understand where you're coming from. My stock is way down for me this year, and this could be my last year, or it could be the last year of doing a lot of content about it. And here's what's funny. AudioSparx so far is the second most paying library for me this year. We have also done some work, and when I say we, my wife is helping me a little bit spruce up the AudioSparx account, make sure everything's done right. And there's so much to do on AudioSparx, so many categories, so much stuff to do. So let's just talk about AudioSparx itself for a minute. And if you don't know what AudioSparx is, it is a music library. I'll show it to you. World-class music licensing for creative and commercial uses. High-quality music for major films, TV shows, commercials, and branding. Okay, so when I started with AudioSparx, within a month or two, I had 2 uses of a song in things that were not stock music. They were, well, I mean, unless you're talking about stock music for television commercials and things like that. I had 2 uses that paid over $100. This was in 2021. Okay, this is 2025 now. if you didn't know, but this was in 2021 when I first signed up with them. They also have something called AudioSparx, and AudioSparx is a little bit more like a overhead music / streaming music type of thing. I have a lot of stuff in this, and this is literally since 2021, since late 2021, or almost 4 years now, the only way I've made money with them. And this is basically streaming money, just like you get from Spotify or Apple Music. And so, because you're part of the AudioSparx program if you join the AudioSparx program. And by the way, I have a whole video I will try to remember to put into the links about AudioSparx. And it talks about some of the negatives as well as the positives about it. But this is where we are with AudioSparx and with AudioSparx. They just tell you, though, that it's going to be high quality music for major films, TV shows, commercials, and branding. I don't know anybody. If you have gotten a song on a major film or TV show, or even a commercial, or anything other than AudioSparx, or I have started making some AI income from my songs being on there. And you know why I'm making it? Because I can't get them out. That's the other big deal about AudioSparx. And this is a little scary right here. And the reason is you cannot get them out if you sign them into the AudioSparx library, not the AudioSparx. You can get stuff out of AudioSparx, I believe. But if you sign it into the AudioSparx library, you cannot get the music out of it. So if you ever want to sign that to an exclusive deal at a sync library, you cannot, because it's in AudioSparx. And so that is my main reason for not using AudioSparx. My second reason for not doing AudioSparx is if you think this is going to be Motion Array, where they are getting you in YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's happening with AudioSparx at all. Not at all. And so that is where we are with AudioSparx. And I've just been very disappointed over the years. It continually brings me quarterly income of $20 or $30 or $40. So I guess it depends on how valuable you think that is. But I just think that is a stock site that you should probably steer clear of, especially just like Gregory said. He's cautious about them because they will take your songs and it's perpetual. There's not a thing you can do to get them out. I think I've managed to get a few out just because I made a stink about it and they did. But recently I've been trying to make that same stink to get all my originals out because I made a decision at the beginning of this year to not have original music in stock music anymore. And so I am taking all my originals out of stock music, all my personal brand stuff, anything that's original, and really just I do a lot of public domain stuff. And to me, that's fine. Let them put that up there and run AI on it and do all that kind of stuff on Beethoven. Who cares? But my originals, no. And my originals I'm taking out. But one problem with that plan is I can't take them out of AudioSparx. So I'm kind of stuck there. Other libraries I can't take them out of are some other libraries I want to talk about here. And I'm not going to call up all the sites, but 100 Audio and VFine, which are Chinese libraries. I've signed contracts with them and I am counting the days. I think VFine is August and I can pull every single thing out. And I think 100 Audio is next year. I can pull everything out. Again, trying to get all my songs out of some of these stock libraries that I'm not that interested in being in. Another one is 123rf.com. One of my very first stock libraries I used as a content creator or used for art and for videos and things like that. They have just gone down to nothing. Dreamstime, nothing last year. The Music Case, which is a site I love uploading to. It's a very nice, easy upload. Nothing. Jamendo. I get emails from them all the time right now. Maybe you are too about, oh, you want to be in our AI program. Why don't you just sell some of my music in the first place? And their process of uploading is very tedious. And then Music Revolution, which looks like a site that was made when the internet came out in 1995. But that too, these are just places you should avoid. And I'll put these in the notes down below. I've had a lot of sales on Palm 5 as of late. I know a lot of people haven't, but I went back down to $5. The only way you could do it is to play the penny game there and then play the Content ID game with them. So I am currently out of Content ID, but I'm getting ready to put a bunch of stuff back in, especially since I don't know. I can't really tell if it's helping me or hurting me with Motion Array. I can turn Content ID off and on Motion Array, so I might do a month where Content ID is off and it's on and see if that makes any difference in my sales. I'm not sure it will. If anybody has experience with MotionArray.com, which is a stock site that pays you on how many downloads you get in some formula. It has changed a lot this year. I'm probably making about 30% less at Motion Array because of the way they changed their pay structure. And many of you are, I'm sure, as well. Samaria says, I only made $50 from AudioSparx. Honestly, now I don't upload. Gerald Reef says, AudioSparx says they get more money from RadioSparx than sync placements now. Well, there you go. That's exactly what, that's all I know. And if that's the case, why is it exclusive and perpetual? That doesn't make any sense. That's greed to me. Home Studio says, I once had a song placed in a political commercial through AudioSparx, only have about 10 songs in them due to them not allowing Content ID. Aha. Here is one little caveat to that, Home Recording Studio. They do allow Content ID if you're with Identify. Because I emailed them, I was going back and forth about trying to get my songs out of there. And one of the excuses I used was because I am in Content ID with Identify and I don't think those songs should be in there. They said, it's okay. It's okay. We're cool with Identify. So if you're with Identify, they don't have a problem with Content ID. But again, it will be perpetual if you put it in there. Samaria says, Motion Elements and 100 Audio are two platforms I would still choose to sell non-exclusive music, but can't totally depend on it. I I am making a push on Motion Elements this year since I am not in Content ID this year, and going to see if that brings any income. We'll see. So far, I don't have any information on that yet. But when I do a mid-year kind of checkup on stock music, which I will do probably in June or July, we'll do a mid-year checkup. One Under Audio, I know people have had success with it, but I just haven't, and it's just too much of a headache to upload to with MIDI files and proof and all this stuff. No, thank you. And their contracts are super scary, and I just want out of the Chinese libraries. Motion Elements is also technically a Chinese library, but it's in a friendlier Chinese area. Motion Elements also has a program that's very much like a cloud program where the more that people download, the more you get. It's not a sale by sale. I've never had a sale that I know of on Motion Elements. Not one sale in 4 years on Motion Elements. So I could put them on this list, but I have to see this year how the global distribution thing goes. They've got a few things where if you're not in Content ID, they'll put it out to things and you can make some pennies off that. We'll see. Cloud9 Music blows out my Content ID statement with my next Content ID is going to be around $300 to $500. Yeah, I'm excited for the next check. I actually have a $150 check or so coming in a few days here. So that's not terrible, but it's not as much as it used to be. I am going to be retooling Content ID and Identify and putting some stuff back into it, especially my original music that's on Spotify and stuff. So I will be putting some stuff back on there. Last thing here, let's talk about a few other things I want to talk about considering stopping. And you can give me your thoughts on this in chat or in the comments. But someone mentioned, I put something up on YouTube saying, hey, what are the things that you want me to talk about when I talk about stopping things? Somebody mentioned Spotify, which I thought was interesting. And I guess people just look at Spotify and say, hey, that they don't pay enough. If you don't get so many spins, they won't pay you at all. That money goes to someplace else. Should you use Apple Music instead of Spotify? I will tell you that I do think that Apple Music sounds better than Spotify. Even at Spotify's highest level on your best connection, I think Apple is absolutely better sounding. So when I need to go listen to something that's just come out and I have Apple and Spotify, I will go to Apple Music and listen to it. But when I want a playlist of the music that I want to listen to, I'm probably going to go to Spotify. And when I'm driving around in the car and quality doesn't matter as much, that's probably where I'm going to listen, is because they have better playlists and better identifying of what I want to listen to than Apple does. There's another one that I love called Qobuz. I don't know if you've heard of Qobuz. They're kind of a high res, another great place to listen to. But it's hard to question Spotify. It's hard to question a place that is the industry leading music delivery device of the world. And I think very much like in the old days, if you were a artist, you needed to be on something like MTV, or you needed to be on something like the Top 40 to get heard, or you needed to be in record stores. I think these days, if you are an artist who's going to be taken seriously, you have to be in Spotify. Come on, you've got to be there. Whether you want to talk about using it or not, you've got to be there as an artist if you're putting stuff up. Another thing that I might consider stopping is Twitter. I don't use Twitter, but I do use YouTube. But I get tired of seeing shorts on YouTube. If I want to watch shorts, which I don't, I would go to TikTok Island, or I would go to Instagram Island, and I would go there and listen to stuff. Now, why do I call TikTok Island and Instagram Island? TikTok and Instagram are islands, my friends. If I can't put a link there that they can click on, and I know you get a link at each, but you only get one link. And if I can't put something up that drives them to a link, which most posts don't, because people are just doing this, then that's not interesting to me. YouTube Shorts is the same. It's just it's just people on their phones just scrolling, doom scrolling. They're not going to hear a word and click on something to learn more. I need people on YouTube or on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I need people on Discord. I need people who are going to say, oh, that sounds interesting. Click. I'll go watch that video. And all of the short places don't do that. They do have a place, but no one is going to go to your profile and click on a link and follow a link to the thing you want. So to me, and going back to Twitter, Twitter does have the ability to do that. So I just don't use it, and I think it's not really used as much for that. I think in the old days when there wasn't Instagram or much or in TikTok, that Twitter was a place you could put a link and get people and get followers. But that's just a whole different ball game of people, and I've just never been a Twitter person. I think Facebook, surprisingly, is still very effective. I have an artist who blows crazy up on Facebook. I have a few artists, and they're usually doing stuff that is an older audience, but or a genre audience, and they do great on Facebook on their page and on their personal there, and get a lot of people following them. And LinkedIn, I think, is a social media that people do not think about enough. It's a very professional place. People will follow you professionally there and take you serious there, and they have direct links that you can go wherever you want. And so I think that is better than some of these short channels or Twitter. And finally, someone mentioned on the site auto-tune. You can't stop tuning vocals. We are too used to it. We are too used. Have you ever listened to a song from the 40s or 50s, some song from Christmas or something? If it hasn't been like remastered, it's painful. If you ever watch an old movie and people are just singing out of tune, you ever listen to Frank Sinatra from the old days, always singing kind of just a little bit flat or sharp or whatever he did? It's painful because we're so used to everything being tuned. And so I don't think you can stop it. I think you can be careful with it. This goes for quantizing as well, probably. Quantizing stuff directly to the beat. We're used to that as well, but making sure that it still has a human feel, whether it's auto-tune you're talking about or quantizing, you got to be careful about that. Which kind of brings us back to the beginning. It's all a big circle. And it kind of brings us back to the beginning of AI and just being human in all of these things we've been talking about, and thinking of the people who are on the other end of the line. I appreciate this discussion. Well, Warheart, I appreciate you being here and being on this podcast, because I love all your comments, love everyone's comments. Michael Rain says, can I contact music supervisors in disco, or is it just a one-way street? No, you can't. You can. They have an email program, but you still have to know their email. But music supervisors can find you in disco. They can, if you've opened your catalog up to them to be able to search, they can find you. But you cannot contact music supervisors in disco. And I'm not sure, there's so many comments, I'm not sure. You had asked a question about music supervisor. I didn't know if you meant musicsupervisor.com, or maybe it was just this. But no, you can't contact directly music supervisors in disco. And I think contacting music supervisors is a fool's errand. I don't think you should even try, because they are too busy for every one of us to be emailing them all day. Hey, you like this song? What about this one? What about this one? That'd be ridiculous, especially if we send them a SoundCloud link. And with that, my friends, I will close today and just say thank you so much for being here. I hope it hasn't discouraged, but maybe helped you, maybe encouraged you towards the right directions rather than the directions that maybe you shouldn't go in. And so if you want to get some free stuff, go to makemusicincome.com/free. I've got free ebooks there on how to make music income, free tools that you can use, all sorts of things. And then also make sure you get in touch with me about our tracking session that's coming up at Watershed Recording in Nashville, Tennessee, with just the top players that exist in Nashville in this area, and I've worked with for 20 plus years, and they are just fantastic. It's going to be a great fun time. If you have anything needed tracking, get in touch with me at makemusicincome@gmail.com. If you want to meet me, come to Nashville, be part of these tracking days, and come hang out for sure. And as always, I'm looking for Positive Spin partners to be part of things like these tracking days, to be part of things like this album that I am releasing that I just pitched today. retention album that I did with someone who joined my Positive Spin Partners program. And we've got Angela, who we are working on some things together right now, and she's already had 2 songs pitched and accepted into a library. I could go through this thing here and talk about people that are part of my partners program. Mark Rushton has been part of today's discussion. And so if you're interested in being a partner, just get in touch. Go check out the information. I've got a whole page for you at positivespinsongs.com/partners, where you can just see if it's for you. See if you think that's something you want to be involved in. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, musical people who are not using AI and are thinking about rethinking SoundCloud and are rethinking CDBaby and are rethinking some stock things, I'm glad you joined me today. And we'll talk to you on the very next podcast. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day and rest of your week. We'll see you. Bye-bye.